Agriculture back in business. It's Thursday, April 16th, a little 17 after 10. We are going to just have some committee discussion about Paraquat. I personally didn't put it on the agenda because I didn't know if we were going to get to this or not, so I didn't want to do that. But I just want to have some committee talk about this and get a sense of where we're at and looking at some language. I need the committee to be open with their feelings about all this, like you are. I'm feeling that the language that came over from the House is very brutal. I always believe that with the testimony that we've received, that our language ought to reflect that. And maybe it's different within the committee, and that's perfectly fine. I want that. I respect that. But I haven't seen anything in testimony yet that absolutely positively tells me that Paraquat causes Parkinson's disease. I know that there is a huge concern that it does, and I think I've read just as much that it doesn't. But at the end of the day, I would have to agree that it is a chemical that, if not used correctly, could be deemed a very bad chemical, like a lot of them are. I also always think that we have the responsibility to do with what is right for Vermont, the Vermont farmer, and that the minimal amount of use that is being used in Vermont, I would find it hard for anybody to be able to make the case that it is a big contributor of creating the disease of Paraquat. Of Parkinson's. But I have to really look at what the EPA is doing and going along. And I do believe that in a matter of time, that at some point in time, the EPA is going to take a lot harder stance on it. And that I've also been in the business of using chemical. And I'm very, I think some of the most compelling testimony that I heard is when I heard a apple grower who is a organic grower in many other areas say that if I lose the ability to use this chemical, I'm probably just going to get out of that part of the business, which was the apple grower that was using it to the 1 to 2,000 trees per acre. But I think I can get myself to a position, and that is what is most important to me, is for all of us to be able to get in the position of defending something that we do. I've said to you guys over and over again, in a lot of different things, but especially because we haven't disagreed much on anything. But I've also said that we're going to keep on taking testimony until we can get ourselves to the point of where you can defend your position. And and I have to be able to defend my position as well, not to look like you caved on something, and then it ends up hurting the Vermont farmer. Something that from day one, on both day ones, on the first day that we met as a committee, where we said that every decision that we make was going to be not a political decision, but for what is best for the Vermont farmer. I believe that to this day that this committee has done that. So this is one of the first few bills that would probably draw any disagreement amongst the committee, but I don't even know that because we really haven't discussed that. We do have a disagreement, but I am very conscious about where everybody is with it. So I'm knowing full well that maybe a compromise would have to be. As you guys know, I don't keep very many secrets from you guys at all. Not meant to be. I've talked to all of you about what I've asked Senator Plunkett to do, which is to get ourselves to maybe some language of compromise. I tell you this. I cannot use the language that the House sent over. And here's why. I think it makes just too many assumptions that we did not hear as a committee as far as the of Paraquat and the dangers of. And I'm not going to sign my name to something that I can't agree with. But I'm thinking that I could get to something that would give these farmers an off-ramp to find something with a 2030 date, as far as to allow them to get to allow the use of that unrestricted for apple growers and strawberry growers, what I really want to see is that they're going to use this in a controlled manner, uh, if not hand spraying, like hand spraying. And the only reason I have even got off of the complete hand spraying is because one of the apple growers from, I think it was from East Montpelier, that said that they have an arm that goes out that goes up to 14 inches. So I don't want to restrict that person from using that piece of equipment to do that. I also thought it was very important to include the strawberry growers who are using this in a very effective way. I thought that they made a very compelling case to why it was important to them. What I'm not interested in doing is opening up to large field spraying where there could be drift situations where the 50-foot boom trucks and going out through those fields and then if because we did hear testimony on it that this can drift the way that it does drift. I don't want to be responsible for advocating for that possibility. And I think that if you were to use a big boom truck on a big 40-acre field or a 10-acre field or a 50-acre field or a 100-acre field, that you could get into that situation. So I made my pitch about, I think that's where it wants to go. And I very much would appreciate going around the table and hearing where you want to be. And if what you would need to do to get to what you would need to have to hear what a compromise would look like for you. So who wants to open it up?
I'll start if that's okay. I'm sure. One of the things that is important to me, and the chair mentioned it, is a compromise. I don't think it's any secret. When I started this in this committee, I had no idea about agriculture in any way, shape, or form. I appreciate Senator Heffernan and Senator Ingle and educating me a lot on, even behind the scenes and then also testimony throughout the last couple of years. And I joked that I've gone to more farms and fairs over the last 2 years than in my life. And so for me, it is vitally important, particularly since we're losing so many farms in our state. What can we help that we not make it so tough for them? That's the one section that I have. The other section, obviously, that I have is, making sure that things are safe and safe for everyone. And if we do have an off ramp, if we do have some exemptions, I believe that's the way to go.
What are your exemptions?
My exemptions would be the apple, and I think it says fruit producing trees, which I like better than just apples, because we've heard more testimony on other and then for the strawberry plants as well. The one thing that isn't necessarily in here that is the application of how it's supposed to be applied. I almost think that needs to go maybe a little bit further, and because we've gotten testimony, and that's the other thing. I think how it's been applied, the farmers that have taken upon themselves to be very responsible in how to do it, and once again educated me on how to do it. You mentioned it, the height from that. So I'm good with this. Like I said, the only thing that I would probably add is being more specific on application. And I'm going to say this for the protection of the farmer as well. What the PPP is going to be with the how they're you know, when they're applying it, what they should be using or whatever. And I know that may be going a step further, but safety is important also for me, for the farm as well, and how they apply that. So that's where I'm at. Um, and then I think it's, you know, the EPA is looking at this very very intently. I think they'll probably make a decision within that 4-year period. It gives our farmers in Vermont a runway to continue to use it and see what the federal government does in that time.
Thank you.
Almost have to echo everything Senator Majors just said. I would prefer to see berries, because I believe we had berry plants rather than strawberries, because I do believe we had a blueberry plant that they said they used some of it on. So I think that would cover both the areas that these berry growers and apple producers or fruit producers, that gives them it opens it up to, so that we don't exclude somebody that we didn't need to. I'll have to say, I had a constituent come up to me yesterday. She goes, "Whatever you do, ban Paraquat." And I'm like, "Well, we've been more educated on it." I said, "The farmers use it. It's limited use." I said, "About 125 gallons were sold," to make sure Senator Plunkett made, you know, it was sold. So we really don't know how much was used in Vermont. It could have been more, could have been less. But it's a good indication of how unctuous. I didn't realize it was that little in Vermont. And I said, it's limited use. I think the biggest use we heard was down by in Bennington and in Cornwall or Shoreham, sorry. And that the benefits are really good. Our lawyer friend that stopped in down in Georgetown did send us a list of many other chemicals to use, and I'm sure some of them will come to the forefront to take the place. But as of this moment, I have to go with what Senator Pallimore says, is that I don't like the Vermont. We're using it. We're one of the smallest users, and I don't think we should be the first to say that it's so insignificant here that it's limited use is great by me. And I think it's good for Vermont, and it's good for, and as soon as the EPA says it's no longer any good, they'll be gone.
Does that mean that you would have a hard time going with a 2030 date?
I don't, it's 4 more years out. That'll go. We all know time goes rather quickly. I just put it in that we go till it's banned by the US government, and they have a lot more money. They've done a lot more testing. Again, Parkinson's a terrible disease. I know a couple of people that have it, and you know, was it where did they get? I don't believe that paraquat innate, you know, the volatility and how far it can travel. There are so many factors that play into that we didn't hear about. You know, it's wind direction. It's what do you have for foliage that it's got to cut through. Does sunlight make a difference over dark days? Does sunlight kill it faster? That's a lot of testimony you didn't hear. And I've worked with chemicals on the military side, and it makes a big difference for how long an agent is persistent and will last. And most of them, their shelf life is very limited, which is a great thing for how bad they are. So that's where I stand. Yeah, I just extend the date until, but if the committee is more about 2030, I'm not going to argue that.
I can tell you, thank you for that.
Yep.
I can tell you where I was bothered. Where it flipped my brain. And I'm not gonna go into where the testimony came from, but you will all know as a committee. I was bothered by one testimony that I didn't know that they really actually had an accurate handle on how they were using the chemical. And they were using a lot of it. And that bothered me. And, I can go further if you need me to. But that fundamentally, bothered me. And they were one of the larger users of it. And I didn't know that they were being as prescriptive and careful as some of the other people that we were taking testimony from. And that just, it bothered me. But, any comment on that? Fine. Then I'm gonna go to Senator Plunkett.
Sure. And probably everyone knows I was good with banning at the beginning, waiting to 2030. But and in terms of the dangerousness of paraquat, I'm not a researcher, but from what I've reviewed in terms of everything that links it to a higher risk for Parkinson's is more persuasive to me than the other. And I rely on that. So in terms of the Parkinson's, I think it's there. It's a risk that we should be taking. And looking at the bill that came from the House, I would vote yes on it as it is. What I see though is the exemption of most of what's used in Vermont for the next 4 years under the essentially the supervision of the Agency of Agriculture. And what I've come to know from the agencies, these are folks that we can trust. And if they're going to be issuing the permits, making sure that everything is done in place, it's something that's a lot more safe for us. So I'm on the opposite side, I'm comfortable with it being another 4 years, especially since, and I didn't get an answer to sort of the per capita use, so I don't know exactly, but it does seem like Vermont its use is reducing that risk compared to other places. And so by looking at this, I'm good with finding out who's using it now and having them be part of the permit from the agency. We heard from strawberries, I guess what I didn't hear from blueberries, we should have that language in there, but to make sure that it also prescribes the burning of the fields, like had been discussed, the two different ways. And
So, not to interrupt you, keep your thought process, I'm gonna add. Are you saying that you would want a little bit more testimony to hear a little bit more about where it's being used or how it's used, or that you would want the Agency of Ag as they go forward with the permits just to keep track of how it's being used and where it's being used?
I think we have to make sure that the language doesn't allow something that we're not intending it to allow. And I'm not sure if what we have does that with I got a very small amendment from Pledge Council that would just add or for growing strawberry plants. I don't know if that would be something that would prohibit burning the field first and then planting strawberry. But
Would it be out of line for us to put in that it only can be used by the current people using it, and or do you think that would restrict? I mean,
there's some restrictions on that in the permitting. I think it allows new people to come in, and I think we won't be seeing new people because it's for the
Trees the newer plants.
Yeah,
Choose the newer
plant.
yeah, it's
That's
after
used,
they're over
so
3 years old, they stop.
yeah, if it's going to be used, they don't want to prohibit new folks from using it.
And that's for somebody who would hold weight with me, somebody who would be fine with just banning it as came around to the point to where, if we're gonna use it to 2030, then let's use it.
Yeah, a couple of things is one thing that, when you think of Vermont, you do think of apples, and this is mostly used on apples. It's clear that industry is changing. There's some historical things changing. So I'm very cognizant of that. With the ban not taking into effect until 2030, I mean, we essentially wouldn't be the first. I'm sure there are other states, and from what I understand, there's one other state that's going to probably pass it this year, that'll ban it more than this does.
Do you know that state?
Example. This is just like brief conversation, but I'll find out actually, because I know a lot of them are looking at it, and I know that it's got some traction. And the 2030 also allows us to look at what the EPA is doing in 2 years. And, you know, if the EPA is saying something completely different, the new legislature can look at it again. I'd rather have that hard stop in there rather than we're gonna wait until, and I've worked with federal law enforcement. They've been great. And usually I can rely on them, but I came to not rely on them. It's, you know, that's just from my point of view. So, that's sort of my position on it. Sounds like we're almost there. Oh, the other thing, the section 1, I mean, I agree with everything in there, but we don't need it. I don't like findings in laws anyway.
I don't want to do that.
I mean, when I'm looking up a statute, I don't want to have to scroll through pages of stuff that isn't actually something that has any effect. So I'm good with striking out section 1 entirely. Right, it's not having that at all.
No, I'm fine with that. I'd like it as plain could be, but before we start discussing how the bill is, I want to hear from Senator.
Well, I want to thank the chair for allowing the committee to thoughtfully talk about this. And I think, as is true in almost every case I could think of, the more thoughtful a committee can be to hear both sides of a particular argument, the better the end result is. So I just thank you for that. And that was my first point. The findings should be, in my view, deleted. I think it sort of loads the deck in one direction, and I don't think that needs to be there. So to me, it all comes down, and I was a firm absolute no when we started the process, just like Rob was a firm yes. To whether or not I became convinced with testimony we took about the causal relationship between the chemical we're talking about and the disease, Parkinson's. So, if I understand it, in the legal world, there are 3 levels of proof. The first one is the preponderance of evidence. The second is clear and convincing, and then the third is beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not convinced that we have established anywhere near the second or third level of proof. We may have some preponderance of evidence, and yet Mr. Faber, I think was his name, who was the Georgetown gentleman, and I guess I know his family well, sent us a letter from someone that has the disease, unfortunately, and I'm not making light of that, but admitted in the letter that he knew it wasn't because of the chemical that we're talking about. So I think that's kind of like, we heard a lot of testimony both ways, and it certainly doesn't reach, for me at least, the level of beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe clear and convincing, I don't know, but I'm on the fence about how much of a direct causation there might be between the usage of this paraquat and the incidence of Parkinson's. So there I am there. I'm okay with the amendment that I guess Rob has drafted. I am sensitive to Senator Heffernan's issue with the berries. Maybe we just say growing berries instead of strawberries. I don't know what the second instance of amendment means.
Yeah, we'll have to have Brad explain it.
I don't know the difference between not be valid for and be valid for not, but I don't have the rest of the language to sort of pair it up. So maybe we need a little tweaking there. I agree about the application method. The last thing any of us, I think, want is someone with a huge sprayer to be running around the field, just throwing 50, 60 gallons at a time out into the atmosphere. I don't think, if it's a handheld wand and it's carefully being used, I don't have a problem with that. And so the last thing is the date. And I guess Steve and I are sort of on the same page, except in the spirit of compromise, I'm definitely willing to pick a date of maybe 2030 and allow that usage for the next, whatever it is, 3.5, 4 years. And that at some point, if the EPA does step in and say, can't use it anymore, that becomes moot anyway. There were, I think, 13 other states, just to go back on Steve's question, that were considering legislation this year. Some of them may move a little more quickly than we do. I don't know, but, this is one of those cases where I don't need to be first in the nation with it.
I found a legitimate site that actually had that.
Okay.
As many yesterday.
Yeah.
Were saying how many
Yeah.
were, and I'll see.
And, you know, frankly, who knows if they will, I mean, if everyone's sort of predicting what will happen.
So that's where I am. If we had 20 witnesses and 18 of them said, absolutely, there's a direct causation between the usage and the disease, that would, but and I don't know that it was 50-50, but it was certainly other people saying, hey, EPA even did a study that wasn't 100% certain about, and they wanted more information and more studies to be done. So, again, I'm fine with the date moving it and, like the findings out. And that's where I am.
Yeah, and just one more thing, and I kind of did something that was a little different from the rest of the committee. I almost took the Parkinson's part out. Just the danger of the of paraquat is what I was looking at, and then talking to some of the farmers as well. I mean, get it on skin, and it's bad stuff, and I think we know that. And so that was a little bit of what I was kind of looking at as well, and banning it except for the usage that it should be. And as farming is what I was looking at, because, you know, quite frankly, I think I agree with Senator Collins. The jury's still out whether there's that causation, but I was more looking at the danger of the chemical to begin with, you know, so it's not in banning it, you know, from you know, general. I mean, you know, anyone can go and kind of get it now, and like in other countries, and the reason in other countries is because of the suicide things. And so I was looking at it more towards that than was looking at more towards the Parkinson's situation.
I'm not sure that's true though.
With
If you walked into a hardware store, wherever they sell this, I think you have to show them a commercial applicator's license in order to buy
You
it.
cannot buy paraquat. There's only one or two places that sell paraquat. One's in Addison and one.
so you do have to have.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't.
Okay.
No, Joe Public cannot
Yeah.
come in and buy.
And one's legal, but
Right.
I know where
Thank
Senator,
you. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm a little bit where Senator Major is as far as the way he looked at it. And, I did want to pay attention to the Parkinson part of it, but I do agree. It's a bad chemical.
Oh, there's no doubt.
It's a bad one, but there's other bad ones out there as well.
There's a
So,
lot
but
of-
I'm comfortable with, I'm not shutting down any of the discussion. I don't want anybody, I'm comfortable of getting Bradley back in here. And I didn't want to have Bradley in here as we were trying to figure out where we're going to go, because I honestly didn't know where it was going to go.
Yeah.
So I would be glad to see if we could get Bradley in here for tomorrow, if Linda could, if he could make himself available and work this bill out, in front of him with conversations like this, if you all agree with that.
Yeah, I'm definitely fine with that. Absolutely.
Pete?
Yeah, yep, sure. Yep, that very good update meeting, very good discussion. Very good points that everybody brought that, like, mine not worrying it. You said, hey, our date, that made a lot of sense. So it's like, I'm good, 2030. Yeah.
Okay, so Linda, if you could see if Bradley could be available tomorrow, and I don't know. I don't want, and I'm gonna let the committee decide it. And I always feel bad about saying I don't like that word. I don't use it in my businesses. I don't use it anywhere else. And I don't want any language in there that we did not find in testimony. I think that is just committee stuff. And no more than do I want to what we did find out, some of where we wanted to be. You know, I just want it as plain and simple language as we can get to. And this is our committee that made this decision And we, you know, I guess sometimes that you do have to say why you came to that agreement. I'm fine with that. I just want to be careful about how we use the language about, you know, does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want it to be a committee language bill that what we found out through the testimony of, we don't have to play both sides of it, but based on testimony that we heard, whatever, however, we'll work it out as we go. And that isn't the final word either. Okay. So, you
But
guys,
yeah, the thing that was, important to me is application and PPE, you know, making sure that the personal protection equipment that the members doing it, that they have the right equipment there.
we good with that?
What's that?
Okay, next, we had some language, as far as on the, helping out the loggers, with that. That bill came, if everybody got a chance to look at that, I think that what we'll do is just attach it to the miscellaneous bill. Whatever happens to that happens. I'm sure that that's gonna get some shots taken at it.
Yeah.
And so, is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
We can talk more about it. I'm okay with it, and
too.
and we'll see where it goes. We'll patch it to our miscellaneous bill. What other cleanups do we have? I know the municipal stuff that, you know, not talking about that, but any of these outstanding bills that, are we forgetting anything that we have said to people that we were gonna take a look at? Senator Major?
No,
Okay,
absolutely not.
okay.
I don't, the dog I want to see is mine. When I had it.
Yeah, I didn't know that was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
current use, did we, I don't know with everybody that's watching, but on the, I think it's on the legislative
yeah,
website.
that's one
There's
of them.
been a thing right along that, the agency is coming up with new regs for current use. It doesn't give you any information.
Well, let's get them back in here. That's good. That's why we had this discussion right here. Because that is important. Let's get back
On
in
equine, is that what?
on equine and on that farm use stuff. So yeah, we need to get them back in here. Thank you for that. That's, I knew I was forgetting
Yeah.
something. So, so think deep, guys. Is there anything else that we were thinking about, that what we were gonna talk about here?
I don't think so.
I think that was the big, obviously the municipal zoning was the big thing.
Right.
This was, you know, kind of the other, big thing. Getting those things out.
So really the two things left hanging out there, that don't have the path forward. Well, one of them is that we do have a path forward. We're just gonna wait and hear some pig language. But municipal zoning, and the other is just what Brian's just brought up about the,
Pigs.
well, but also what you just brought up about the current use
Yeah.
with equine and construction.
Yeah, nothing else was fine.
Okay.
We did the mortgage thing. Yeah. It comes up.
See you all days.
On Faircloth, Virginia, maybe the first. It's continued on 2027, but it passed through.
Yeah.
Everybody else, a lot of them were shot down or didn't. Or just introduced.
The thing that shocks me, well, because it's a big lobby too, but California
Yeah.
just shocks me. You know, because we were involved, but anyways, it is what it is. I'm comfortable. I'm very comfortable. With where we're coming to on that. Okay, anything else? Okay, Linda, we'll call it a day.